Welcome. This is the 2022. That is correct on the slide ahead. We do know that it's 2023, but Michael is our 2022 award recipient. We're able to celebrate him now in 2023. We're so glad that you all could make it today to share in this celebration and this awards ceremony. I think I've been able to meet most of you. If you don't know me already, my name is Amy Lawyer. I am the Department Chair for Equine Administration here at the University of Louisville. We are so happy to have you here. We're going to start this off with a small speech from our interim dean, Dr. Jeff Guan of the College of Business. So I'll turn it over to him to kick things off.
Thank you, Amy. And the term Amy used when she was briefing me was brief speech. And as Amy said, I'm the interim dean of the College of Business. And so as people ask me, what's interim? So we have iPhones, we have iWatches, so I'm an iDean. But for those of you who know my predecessor, he left in August last year, and I was the senior associate dean, and so they appointed me the interim dean. So, but what we're celebrating here tonight is truly permanent. And I was sitting next to John Phillips, and I got to know a lot about the family and about this wonderful legacy and award. It's true vision. And I think it's also appropriate that Amy has chosen today to be the date of the award ceremony because today Elon Musk, along with about 900 people, very influential people, signed a petition to slow the progress of AI. That is very different from what we are celebrating here tonight. Horses, and the unbridled spirit. So this is a great night, and before I go down, I would like to say that Amy is a great leader. She took the reign of the Equine program last August at the same time, but she's permanent. I'm interim. And but we have so much hope and so excited for Amy to lead this great program. And of course, I can't leave the stage without saying that our recipient tonight, Michael Dickinson, who is from York, not from New York, but from York. And it's a great evening. I just remember that I have a script, but I'm not going to use it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Guan. We're so excited to have you all here to celebrate the Galbreath Award. This award has been given for the past several years as an embodiment of the spirit and our focus and our mission as an equine industry program at the University of Louisville. We are here to try to push the industry forward. We're here to teach and help create future leaders in this industry that will hopefully go out and do great things to carry our industry into the next century. And so it just is fitting that we award and recognize individuals within our industry that have truly done what we set out every day to do, and that is to have innovative ideas, to push the envelope, to create change in a positive way so that we can sustain this industry that we all have grown to love. I am very honored to not only have Michael Dickinson here, but also Michelle Fisher, who was the person who nominated Michael. Michelle is near and dear to all of our hearts here at the Equine Industry Program, as she is a graduate of our program and is also the president of Darting Star LLC. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle, and she's going to fill you all in on her connection with Michael.
Good evening. So tonight we're here to celebrate and honor Michael Dickinson for evolving the global racing and training surfaces to be safer and consistent, for pushing boundaries in a sport which is slow to change, for his obsession with chasing perfection while measuring each success and each failure, for never being content just to rest on his previous achievements, and for his lifelong commitment to improve horse racing. I'm pretty excited to be here tonight to honor Michael. I've been to a lot of these events as a graduate, and it's special to have nominated him. I'm probably a very strange person to have nominated Michael because we've never worked together. We've basically been crossing paths at racetracks and industry conferences for about 30 years. We all know Michael's history as a horse trainer. He's been very successful. He's in the Hall of Fame in the UK for steeplechase racing. In the US, he's had 31 graded stakes winners, including Tappet. And most people would just rest on those remarkable laurels, but not Michael Dickinson. He's been driven to improve training, horse soundness, and safety, and he invented the DePita racing and training surface, which is now considered to be the safest and most consistent surface in the world. I first met Michael in probably 1996 when I was working on a telecast for NBC at the Breeders' Cup, and he had won the mile with DeHaas the first time. He came back in 1998 and won. And I was just a recent college graduate and just randomly met him. And it was several years later, probably about the mid-2000s, I was working for a tow company. I happened to be visiting my client in Delaware, at Delaware Park, and I bumped into Michael right in the paddock. And we were chatting, and he said, well, would you like to come over to my farm? It's not too far away, and I can show you everything. And I was like, okay, tomorrow. Let's make it tomorrow morning. We'll have breakfast. Joan, you were not there, sadly. And I thought to myself, Michael's known as a maverick, a mad genius. I was really curious to see this place, and so I was there. And it was the most splendid morning. Michael toured me around the entire facility. He explained to me his philosophy for caring for horses, training horses. And this is where I was introduced to the DePita surface. He had various gallops and in this lab full of, secret sauce mixtures. He truly appeared to be a mad scientist. I never really did get that breakfast he promised me. One of these days I will get that, but I learned a whole lot. And from that point forward, Michael and I continued to communicate sporadically, and we would just talk about our opinions about different things in the industry. And we're here tonight because in 2005, Michael and his business partner and life partner, Joan Wakefield, decided to take this DePita surface from a private invention that was used for training his horses in his facility and sell it to the global racing industry. As many entrepreneurs know, it takes more than a great product to be successful. They had to have a lot of tenacity and passion to convince racing leaders to disrupt the status of the status quo of dirt tracks, which have been in place for hundreds of years at racetracks and training centers. And the process for adoption was slow in the United States. They did get Golden Gate Fields in California and the new Presque Isle at the time immediately. I even saw Michael one day out there doing his testing barefoot running on the track. I'm not sure what kind of test that was. But the statistics were really good, very, very few breakdowns. But then the market got a little funny here in the US. There were a flood of other synthetic companies that came in, and they were the best, they were this. Well, they were installed and they've come and they went. And that didn't stop Joan and Michael. When this market became really crazy and the U.S. industry was trying to figure out and arguing over what to do, they took this product to the UK, they took it to Australia, and they took it to the Middle East. And they installed surfaces all over the world. And from those installations, they were able to prove statistically the dependability of the surface to be safe in different climates. And bettors liked it too. You know, all the while that they did this, they continued to refine both the formulas and the efficiencies of tracks. And now fast forward to, we're in 2023 now, just recently, Tapeta, the greatest new thing, has been installed at Gulfstream Park. It was a turfway. You know, Michael, your invention of Tapeta surface, and both you and Joan taking this creation to the entire industry has created a huge impact, both directly and indirectly, to all stakeholders in the racing industry. And personally, I want to thank you for your friendship. You know, I wasn't buying anything. You just wanted to share with me your philosophy over the years and our friendship. So congratulations on this honor. Both you and Joan are very deserved recipients. And cue the music. Michael?
We'll take a picture real quick. Very sorry. You're perfect. That's Congratulations.
Where shall I go? You want me here? Sure.
Smile, you say
Smile.
louder.
In fourth is the takes up to the third last fence. Money Baby still staying very comfortably in the lead for Michael Dickinson. She's on! Money Baby is down, and that's that disco well clear from some story in second. And she just jumped that in.
Yes, they're coming to the second last. Funny Baby was cantering Julian, but Disco, when left in front, certainly didn't like it there very much. But you can see here, Funny Baby, Michael Dickinson not working over half that stage.
Woodland Poacher still making ground behind the Julie has gone like it, has just jumped it. Coming to the third last now, Salson and Line Regiment. Salson and Line Regiment together. Salson's gone. Salson forward left by Line Regiment. Left clear. Woodland Poacher in second. Ron Viking just jumping in third. So only three left.
It is working, yes.
In it now. And it's Line Regiment from Woodland Poacher in second. Line Regiment over in a bare mistake has jumped it. Coming to the third last now. Salson and Line Regiment. Salson and Line Regiment together. Salson's gone. Salson forward left by Line Regiment. Left clear. Woodland.
This is in the Grand National, but on 40 runs. Just 2 minutes, but Kentucky Derby, they should try riding in the Grand National with 40. So that's me. Somebody said to me, what do you know about safety? Well, the first time I studied it.
It's Winter Rain from Well Oil.
I don't go this time.
Winter Rain in the lead from Well Oil. Michael Dickinson in the lead on Winter Rain from Well Oil towards his outside Bill Smith. And these two coming to it together. Winter Rain from Well Oil, King of Show. Winter Rain touches just down ahead of Well Oil in second place. And it's Winter Rain coming up now towards the last fence in the lead. Winter Rain from Well Oil still trying to challenge him. King of Show in third. But Winter Rain coming to it with a 2 2-length advantage. It looks as though Michael Dickinson has just got a jump it to complete a hat-trick. Winter Rain over clear, and well on second, and Cleveland Show a third. And racing up towards the line, and Winter Rain, he always switches his tail, but he runs his race out quick and game and true. And he is this afternoon, and striding away to the line. Winter Rain is the winner. King of Shire has now gone second and third, well on, and that's the...
Just so you know, all those horses up there, they're all okay. And I was okay. I didn't have even a full muscle or anything. So I know a little bit about safety. This year is a great year for me because it was 55 years ago since I rode my first winner at the Cheltenham Festival. It was 40 years ago this year that I trained the first time in the Gold Cup. And it was 25 years ago that across the street here, De Hoss won the Breeders' Cup, his second Breeders' Cup. Especially Foster Northrop and Kathy Anderson, who they helped me big time, and De Hoss wouldn't have won without their help. Would you stand up, please, Foster and Kathy? Without an exaggeration, these two are two of the best racetrack veterinarians in the world. Not just in the parish and in the state, but in the world. And I work with some really good vets everywhere, and they're fantastic. And as well as being good veterinarians, they're fantastic people. Another person who doesn't deserve all this credit, but I'm going to give him a bit, is Rich Decker, a complete bollocks, if you want. Like, he was sent to see this horse, and it only cost $5,000 as a yearling. It had a crooked foot. It wouldn't pass the vet, and it had only won a race in the desert. But he went and he bought it, and it was the horse that won the Breeders' Cup twice. So well done, Rich. I heard my wife talking to her sister on the phone and saying, "Oh, I've got to go, Rich Decker's coming. He's gorgeous." No. He's a cowboy from Iowa, how can he be gorgeous? You know? So the owners got to know me, so every time we had a meeting, oh, we've got to have gorgeous into the meeting, they rubbed it in, we've got to have gorgeous here. So I got fed up about this. It was very humiliating for me. So Mrs. Preston kept saying, "Oh, gorgeous, we want you in," and everything. So I said, "Don't get too ahead of yourself, Rich Decker, because her first love is De Hoss, and her second love is her own horse, Boomer. So you're only number 3 on the list at best." And he burst out laughing. I demoted him from top to number 3. I said, "Why are you laughing? The other 2 are only geldings." Right, what are we going to talk about now? Where do we get to? I'd like to start with that one, just to remind myself not to take myself too seriously. We're talking about 2 things here. We're talking about the need for change, and the famous Benjamin Franklin said, "When you finish changing, you're finished." So I want to do that, and we want to talk about how we can make racing safer. I wasn't here 100 years ago, but I was here 50 years ago, so I can talk first-hand about that. The beauty about tonight's thing, at least I'm here to accept it. These posthumous awards are overrated. Right, the Grand National, we're talking about reinvent. The Grand National is the, sorry to say this, so close to Churchill Downs, but it's, by the numbers, it's the most popular race in the world. Those numbers there are ginormous, or the number of people are watching. But it's been around for 200 years, but it's ups and downs. And 40 years ago it was broken, and it was all chained up. And it's had several things, but they've kept reinventing themselves. And that's why they've got figures like this. I'm going to do a little bit of history about the Grand National. I'm going to go back. Well, the last photo I showed you, Richard Flint passed, was the canal turn. And in 1928, a horse got stuck on the top of the fence, and all the others a bit like a motorway collision, all colliding into it. So the race was won by a 100 to 1 shot, Tipperary tip. No one had heard of the owner or the trainer or the jockey. And he wasn't a very good horse. So they all said, oh well, if this not very good horse can win the Grand National, we'll put ours in. So this year, there were 66 runners. Oh, yes, exactly. Oh my God. So this was, again, with 66 starters. And this was a bit later, but it's still pretty brutal, really. And this was the first fence. So it was different then. The fences were upright. There was high as 5-bar gates. Beecher's Brook was something you could drown in. There were no helmets, no backpacks, no plastic rails, and no air ambulance. The best chance of a painkiller was a swig of brandy and a piece of wood jammed between the teeth. There were no vets fooling around in a Range Rover ready to administer aid. And the jockeys, the only concussion test was if you could remember your name. But things have changed, thank goodness. And the culture against injury and death has greatly changed for the better nowadays. So there the jockeys, the jockey in front there in the dark was Dick Francis, who, when he retired, became a leading writer, had 40 best-selling books, sold 80 million books. And before he was a jockey, he was a pilot in World War II in the Lancaster bombers. But he much preferred riding in the Grand National because there's no one shooting at him. And this is Beecher's Brook. It's still pretty brutal. And that's Beecher's Brook again. So we're getting a little bit more civilized. It's changed it. This is the first fence. Now the first fence is easy. You and I can jump it, no problem. But they just go too fast. What happens? The jockeys say, I want my horse to see the fences, and I don't want to be pulled down by anybody else. So they all go 1,000,000 miles an hour. You see, they haven't fallen at the fence. They've fallen because they're going too fast. So they change that later on. I'll show you about that. That is somebody, you know, on the ground in the blue and green colours. You've seen that before, Catherine, yeah? That's me, just in case you didn't know. On the ground there. And this is the chair. This is, for those of you who follow soccer, that's Alex Ferguson, the manager of Manchester United, which has just been sold for $5 billion. He loves his racing, and that's Alex. I took him to see the fence because until you've seen them, you don't know how big they are. And that's me upstairs on the top one, and this is Alex having a look at the fence. But that's not me in the red. But the Russian judge gave him a 9.9 for style. So, about this time, well, just about this time, a Scottish trainer went to the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas. And this was his report. He was hugely impressed by the riding skills of the competitors and many ancillary workers, such as the outriders, who rescue those brave riders who have not been catapulted from their mounts. How much the sport has altered over the years, I suspect very little. He found it hard to imagine that bull riders come back night after night to do it again, when they often appear to take a pounding will put the most of us out for months. Safety precautions still favour a Stetson over a helmet. The sports medicine team are unrecognisable as medics when compared to other sports. For a start, they're dressed like almost everyone else, in jeans, boots, and the obligatory 10-gallon hat. There is no magic sponge, never mind a reinventing. We've all had to reinvent ourselves. And Aintree, the national was having too many falls, it was too ugly, and they enacted 20 new safety recommendations. And now it's huge, it's been a huge success. They hardly have any fallers now. It's a different race. And that's the new national now. I'd love to ride in that tomorrow. I really would. I'm too old. But those are the first 6 fences. There's 40 of them if you want to count them. In the old days, when there were 66, they were completely alien to limitation of field size. And this is a modern Grand National. They're all standing, they're all racing. It's a proper race. And that's Beecher's Brook, which is nothing like it used to be. That's what I trained. Right. Go back. Yeah, the one I mentioned, Benjamin Franklin. He's my hero. I thought he was president, but he wasn't. I found him out. Sorry about that. Right, so what can be done? Change of tune. To make racing whips. There'll be no whip in Europe in 5 years' time. And there'll be no dirt in America in 10 years' time. What can we do with safety? Well, the whip's a no-brainer. I rode for 11 years and sold my whip at a nearly new shop. Less drugs, we're already doing fairly well there. I think we've about cracked that. Less dirt, no running of turf, things. I like number 7, 8, and 9, which we'll skip to those. We've done that, haven't we? That's a stats for, I'm saying, no dirt. What will happen? Dirt racing won't be abandoned by the people in racing. It'll be the outsiders. Anytime now, a dirt track will have a rush of injuries. And then animal rights people will go to the governor saying, look, we're killing all these horses, you've got to stop it. But when the shot starts like that, they'll put it into synthetic instead. It won't happen within the industry because the breeders got so much invested in mares and stallions, and you can't blame them. But it's going to happen. They're on the wrong side of history. And they remind me of the people who made bicycles when the motor car came around. What's wrong with dirt? You're laughing at it. What's wrong with dirt? Well, I think you all know all those. So, I love backing the backing turns is so easy with all the roads should be banked on the turns, you know, driving your car around, it's easy. And it's an easy thing to do. Now, the horses loved it. That's a bank turn, obviously. And the rider loved it, but the track superintendent loved it. Because if the ground was good, the horse would just do a print like that. That was great. Going around the turn, there were bigger prints that were sliding around. Now this, there are no prints. Same as you would on good turf. Because before the horse was pushing himself around, now the bend is pushing the horse around. So, just if you know that. These are just science backing each other. I'm not going to bore you with all this, I want to get back to the bar quickly. These sensors. If every vet was as good as Kathy and Foster, we wouldn't need these, but they're not. And this is the orange light before the red light. Basically on the left, there's your horse there, and you don't want the green spikes to get too far over the red lines. This is the same horse a few months later, and he's well over the red lines, and unfortunately broke his leg. So it's just the early warning. But these two don't need it, but a lot of people do. I was at a trial in New York. I love these, absolutely fantastic. The Durawell, we have these on our farm. And even if you're falling, you'd like a rail there because it breaks the fall. It's great. I wish I could have had that in their opening the ground. So it's just a no-brainer. Every track should have those. And they don't splinter. Somebody wants the cheap plastic. And they don't splinter, and these don't. And they're great. We've had these for quite some time in Europe. Right, the big one here, the cutaway. I think you should have 2 of these in the Kentucky Derby. Last year, Rich Strike won the Derby. Was he the best horse? No. He got 1 vote for the Eclipse Award, and Epicenter got 155 votes. So I think most people agree Epicenter, but he didn't win the Derby because he didn't have a good trip. Right, a lot of people think you can't win the Kentucky Derby if you're going wide on both turns. But it's very hard if you're drawn on the outside. What do? Jockeys kill themselves to get to the inner. And so this is a track in Ireland actually. But, basically, when the leader, this is the stretch 2 furlongs from home, and they all can span out and they all get an equal shot of running and winning. Mind That Bird, was he the best horse when he won the Derby? And there have been lots of times when the Derby wasn't won by the best horse. So yes, it's for safety, but it's for fairness. And they say the shortest way is the inside is the shortest way. This way, we're making them all hopefully go the same distance with, and this doesn't cost anything. You've seen in human runners when they're sprinting, they start at staggered starts, don't they? Well, we can't do that with horses. But this way, I can make the guy on the outside cover the same distance as the guy on the inside. So it's for fairness as much as anything. And I feel sorry for the jockeys because they're killing each other to get to the inside. And this doesn't cost anything. Just a good Duralock rail there. And it's so simple. The starting gate. I want to abolish the starting gate. Who likes the starting gate? No one. Now these are all from the daily racing form, all the things that can happen at the starting gate. The horses hated. Barbaro, I think, hurt himself there in the starting gate. Smarty Jones nearly killed himself before he ever ran. And we can't get through a day's racing without at least one horse flipping out in the starting gate. You see, remember, they turn the cameras away. It's brutal. So the horses don't like it. The jockeys don't like it. Well, I mean, they won't say much now in case we accuse them of being cheating. But they'll tell you when they retired, they didn't like the starting gate. I do. Trainers, we don't like it. How often have you heard us say, well, how will your horse run on Saturday? Oh, he's doing really well, let's just hope he breaks good. So, we're always worried about a bad start. The betters can't like it when they've handicapped the race and the guy comes out and just stumbles and misses the break. We don't want to penalise. It's a big asset for the horse to be able to go from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. That's great. We don't want to penalise those horses. We want them to start level. So that was my big thing there. Right, this is trivia now. You don't have to pay attention. This is Cheltenham where we were last week. $500 million was bet. 4 days of championship racing. We have 5 tracks there on the inside. That's the day before. That's my favourite photo. You can just see the horse's head there on the first one, but you can't see the horse's head there. That's where we go for lunch, and that's where we go for tea. And this is another racetrack. That red buoy is the winning post. The wire. And that's the lake. And obviously it freezes in winter and the snow goes on top. That's the racetrack. And that's all the hospitalities, mainly the Swiss banks. They have pre-race meetings in February. So and that's their equipment. And that's the racing they have. That's their thoroughbred racing. It's all right unless a horse puts his foot through the ice. So it's not so good. So there they have, and the last one was standard rates on skis. And this is skiing. Now that's pretty scary, right? But that's not the worst. The worst is they can't stop, there's no brakes. So they always have long races, but they still do 2 laps after they try and pull them off because they're going. And even worse than that is the start, because the horse is going the starting gate, but the guy is behind. And if he doesn't duck, he'll get his head chopped off. Where are all you laughing? Right, so a lot of people think I'm nuts. I'm now going to remove all doubt. The Pennsylvania, the Cheshire Hounds in Pennsylvania go 70 horses and riders and 1 lunatic on his feet. And there he is. There he is jumping there. And on Thanksgiving Day we had 112 horses out, and the lunatics in the white shirt on the far side. And then 11:30 is struggling a bit. And at 3 o'clock, where's my compass? Struggling there, but I caught them all up by the end of the day, which is bad for a 70-year-old. And there's our Irish huntsman. And now, unfortunately, it didn't knock any sense into me. And thank you very much.